Hello guys, and welcome to a new Steel Division video today by me, Vulcan. Today I have for you a 4 versus 4 on Hill 112, and in this game I'm going to be playing with the 2nd Panzer on the Axis side. Now this was a game that was played a couple of weeks ago on my stream. It's one that I wanted to bring to you lot because it was very fun to play, and it showed off some really unconventional strategies. Not necessarily played out by myself, but played out by my teammates. Now my teammates today are Vorhati with the 352nd, Mickey with the Festung Groß Paris, and Urmen with the 3rd Fallschirmjäger. On the Allied side we have Nomad with the 101st Airborne, Mark with the Demi Brigade SAS, Atreides with the 1st Panzer, and Von Luck with the 3rd Armoured. So, an interesting matchup for sure. The divisions on the Allied side aren't really that well suited for Hill 112. But that's not what we're really going to be focusing on today, is not necessarily the matchup, but the gameplay specifically, and how it was very amusing to play, and how it did show off those unconventional strategies that I mentioned. But alongside that, I will be focusing on my own gameplay. I will be looking into the 2nd Panzer, and I'll talk about a bit of their strengths and weaknesses as we move forward. So let's put this to my point of view, and we'll have a look at some of these units that I have placed down. So we're going to be starting up with Spaethrope, of course. Recon is very important. I know often I lack it, but in this game, making sure that I have the Spaethrope heading ahead. Then I've got the Panzer IV-H following up with the Panzer II behind it, bringing in that off-map at the start. Now this off-map's really good for cleaning up pesky AT guns. So if you find that your Panzer IVs are bogged down by AT guns at the start, a Panzer II with that off-map, although it's quite expensive, is a good way to get rid of those AT guns. Then we're going to be following that up, of course, with some command. I've also got a Pak 40 here. That was going to be heading up towards the mid, and hopefully getting into a position where it can shoot down onto the 2nd tier of the hill. Over on the right side, just some more Spaethrope with the half-track there. Now as you can see, I am going to be sort of accompanied by a lot of Vorhati's units. Vorhati decided that he would support my initial push, which was actually very helpful considering the 2nd Armoured often has a severe lack of units at the start of the game. A lot of the 2nd Panzer's forces are extremely expensive, so generally what happens is you have less of them in general, and say in a 1v1 you may have to leave some areas much more vulnerable than others because you don't have the points, at the start at least, to cover all areas. Now as the game progresses towards Phase B, that does change when you get the 150 points per minute, but that's something that you've got to fight through in Phase A, and if you take too many losses or get at too much of a disadvantage, it can be very difficult to come back from, regardless of the amount of points you have from that point forwards, because your opponents may have potentially taken up ground against you, making it difficult to push back. Either way, Mickey is also getting involved over here. He has brought over some Panzer 39s, and he's also decided to bring up the BEO UE 630, which is a smoke off-map vehicle. Now I was mentioning unconventional strategies, and you may have guessed what it's going to be, but over on this right side in the meantime, Mickey's just setting up sort of a light defense to try and hold back Nomad and Von Luck. So Mickey's going to be trying to hold this right side against 2 players, whilst the majority of our forces are going to be pushing aggressively on the left side of the hill here. So the Pak 40, I've unloaded that early so that I can take shots at the Stuart 5 and the Cromwell 5. Unfortunately my Pak 40 is going to miss both shots, but it does force those tanks back for the time being. Spitfire Mark 9 comes in for the bombing strike onto the Pak 38, but ends up targeting the command, so that's going to get rid of that. And that was actually a really nice kill there for our opponents, but here comes the off-map. It smashes that 6-pounder, just like I mentioned, and that's exactly the reason why I brought it in. Those 6-pounders can be a very large threat to a Panzer IV with only 8 front armour, so making sure you take them out with the Panzer IIs is very important. The only thing I would mention is the radius on this off-map is actually not that far. You can see it's only 1,000 meters itself. So don't make the mistake of driving the Panzer II into range of the AT gun and having it killed. Make sure it's either behind line of sight or it's just out of range and you stick it on the edge. But as you can see here, Mickey is going to be using the smoke off map to cover the advance of multiple Panzer 39s. Now these are tanks that have 5 AP apiece. Now up against Cromwell's, you would usually think that they won't do the job, but the closer you get, obviously the more AP you have. So the Panzer 39 there making short work of a Stuart with the help of the command from the Panzer 40. I'm also going to be assisting this push with my half-track here, and my Pak 40 has also pushed up, finds the transmission damage, allows the Panzer 39 to find the kill. Now the 6-pounder, it does open up onto one of the Panzer 39s, finds an internal fire, but they are all still alive, and that's very important. This 6-pounder, it's going to get pinned down by my 251, and that's also extremely important, as my off-map does come down on top of that. Which I believe that was actually Mickey's off-map, yeah. He was coming in with more smoke there so that his Panzer 39s could continue forward. You can see him having the fast move command there. So, a very interesting unit, this, because it's not one you see at all. It's just a command unit that brings in smoke barrages. But Mickey here deciding to use it with these Panzer 39s in order to allow them to get into those close range engagements. So just food for thought if you ever thought that this smoke off map was useless. Either way, Panzer IV is going to continue to advance. Unfortunately, Mickey's smoke off map did make it difficult for me to see that AT gun, so I did have to just suicide my half-track towards it in order to find it. But one thing I was thankful for here was Vulhati has brought in a flak filling, which actually stopped the Spitfire Mark 9s here from making a bombing run onto any of my targets. For instance, the Pak 40. Keeping that Pak 40 alive is very important indeed. The 6-pounder here, it is going to be revealed. It does end up weapon jamming my Panzer IV. I was quite lucky that that did not kill my Panzer IV. But the Panzer II going to be repaying the kill onto the 6-pounder, taking that out. And do not neglect how powerful this Panzer IIc can be in close range combat. So I was mentioning how it's useful for its off-map, taking out AT guns. Its 20mm autocannon can also do the same. It can also rip through infantry very quickly indeed. 2-star 20mm with the 9HE plus the machine gun can do a lot of damage. Do not underestimate it. Once again, off-maps come down here. Mickey's driven right up into the face of a stag count. Unfortunately, I believe at this point his off-map, his smoke off-map must have run out because he couldn't provide any more to cover his Panzer 39 and Panzer 40 as they tried to back off here. So that is a big issue. I'm also going to be getting my Panzer 4H out of the way. That I accidentally gave a fast move order to follow the Gepards here, but the idea was that I got that out of the front line so that I could repair it later on. I've also decided to bring up my own off-map since I realised how reliant I was on Vulhati's. So I wanted to make sure that I had my own off-map or my own AA that I could manage so that I don't get hit by Hurricanes, for example, or the Spitfires that have been shown already. Last thing I want to do is lose this Pak 40 that is going to be absolutely pivotal in holding in the early game. Now normally I'm not so reliant on AT guns in Phase A, but with the 2nd Panzer, due to them getting 1-star Pak 40s with a half-track, I think they're really, really useful units to actually play quite aggressively. So for example, I've already deployed and redeployed that Pak 40 a couple of times, and this will be the 3rd time that I picked up the Pak 40 with the half-track and decided to move it forwards. This is something you should always consider doing, making sure you pick up your AT guns and move them up. In the meantime though, over here you can see the Panzer 40 and the Panzer 39. They're going to be engaging a Cromwell 6 and the Staghound. The Staghound was forced back previously by the overwhelming firepower of these Panzer 39s, but has now recovered and will be firing back. And at this range, the Staghound should have the upper hand towards the Panzer 40 and the Panzer 39. However, Pak 40 is now in position. That's going to be taking shots, and 13 AP makes short work of 5 armor. So this entire time I have taken the opportunity to move up the speed troop on the right side. And, well, the Pak 40 is going to continue to fire, finds internal fragments onto the Staghound there. I do have the Panzer. They were also on a follow order, so they're following this Panzer IV all the way back. This Panzer IV eventually found its way to the town, waiting for when I finally invest into supply. I've also, in the meantime, brought up my Gepard and Flak 38 to support these positions. And the great thing about this combination is you can continue to reload the Flak 38 into the Gepard and move them forward, just like the Pak 40 here. And that, I think, is one of the biggest strengths about the 2nd Panzer, is although a lot of their infantry and support weapons come in half-tracks, making them more expensive, it does give them that kind of mobility that is really, really strong in Steel Division. So as you can see, like, so far, that we actually haven't gained any ground. You know, we've only just started pushing a +1, only just has score started to count up. And that's because Mickey was having trouble holding the right side against Nomad here and Von Luck. So there was that for Mickey to deal with, and hence why the game's off to a slow start. Furthermore, Vorhati assisting me with this push initially has caused him to lose ground on the left slightly as well. So we've got to make the most of this push, and so far I would say we have. We've got into a really decent position. Unfortunately, Mickey's now losing his Panzers though. But my Pak 40, that's going to be moving up. The M1 gun is going to be engaging a couple of my half-tracks. What I do eventually realise is that my Pak 40 can freely engage an M1 gun with its HE. So that's what I'm going to be doing here, allowing the Pak 40 to engage, get the half-track out the way, and hopefully I can kill off that AT gun freely. Panzer II is going to be moving up, and considering this M1 gun's going to be pinned down shortly, I don't really have to worry too much about that being taken out, and I'm instead just going to be fast moving straight up to where that M1 gun is. But of course a 2-star Pak 40 isn't going to miss too often, so should get the job done. So 258 is going to be joining my Panzer IV here. It's getting a little bit ahead of itself, honestly. I should ideally have the Panzer IV ahead with the speed troop sort of supporting that, but I decided to sort of move my Panzer IV to the left instead. And the reason for that is because I don't want to come around the edge of this tree line and engage the Stuart at close range. I'd much rather get a long range engagement onto the Stuart. So I'm going to try and push around the left side of the tree line here so that I can find that engagement. But Atreides is going to be like moving much closer, and that is risky. So you'll see I don't actually go for that engagement in the end. I basically think that that's a bad idea, as now it's definitely a bad idea with the 2v1. But I can, of course, move to a position where I can threaten an engagement, and this will give me time to drop some off-map onto these vehicles so that I have an even more favourable engagement, because of course if the units are falling back, then the Panzer IV should win. So Focke-Wulf 190 going to be coming in with a strafing run. That's going to be engaging the Stuart 5. There's also the IG getting involved, so I decide to have a go with the push onto the Staghound there. I get punished immediately, and this was exactly what I was worried about. Unfortunately, the Focke-Wulf also goes down to the double Hurricane from Atreides, so some really nice trades from Atreides. And yeah, basically I should have waited until the off-map came down to push with my Panzer IV. It's basically impatience that got the better of me. So yeah, learn from your mistakes, guys, or learn from my mistakes. In the meantime though, Pak 40 is going to find a strong kill there onto the Cromwell 6, once again moving it forwards, catches out my opponent. Having the Spähstrup in that position does mean that I find that kill. One thing you may have also noticed is I've started to purchase these Jagdpanzer 4s. I think these Jagdpanzers are really, really good. You have 150 points per minute to work with in Phase B, and a Jagdpanzer costs 190. and they're really strong for their cost. So investing in them here I think was a really good idea, just especially going up against the 1st Panzer and any of the other divisions on the map currently. The only thing I would potentially struggle with is a jumbo from the 3rd Armoured, but we're not playing against the 3rd Armoured. Von Luck is on the right side of the hill here, so we don't have to worry about that too much, hence why the Jagdpanzers are my port of call as opposed to the Panther D that would be a better choice versus the 3rd Armoured. Panzer IV here has been fixed up now, finally decided to invest in a Maltier, and you can see that I'm now reloading my Gepards and I'm going to be dragging my Pak 38s forwards. Now the other thing to mention here is that Volhati made a massive play into this town. He decided, with the position that we were in, to invest in a bunch of infantry, reinforce it up through my forces, and then take them left down this road towards this town. And that's allowed him to basically cut off a lot of the reinforcements that will come in from the top side of the map here. This is a lot of the mainline reinforcement roads that have to go through this town, and if he can get the Panzerschreck into a really good position here, he can cut off a lot of those reinforcements. So that's what he's going to be looking to do. Here we have my Jagdpanzer. It's going to be engaging the M10 there, does manage to take it out. I've now also got my Pak 40 involved, sneaking into that tree line, gets the driver wound onto the Cromwell 6, looking for the second shot to pin that down. The Cromwell 6 does manage to get a shot off, but doesn't pin down the Pak 40 in time, and therefore my Pak 40 can get the better of the Cromwell 6 for the time being. Now, M4A 375mm from Von Luck is going to be pushing up on the right, and that has started to clean up a couple of my half-tracks that were getting aggressive. But you can see the progress that Volhati has been making here with his play into this town, and that's causing issues for Mark, who's now going to be trying to prevent the rest of his forces from being cut off, which they currently are, and that's exactly what Volhati's trying to take advantage of by sort of trying to sweep up these units. Obviously it's not going to be easy, since Mark does have a bunch of rallies here with a Panzer III and a Pak 38, but eventually it'll get to the point where these guys are surrounded, they won't get reinforced, and therefore will be cut off and cleaned up. So, we're in a decent position. It's still only a +1 due to the right side losing ground and the left side losing ground, but as soon as this gets cleaned up, this salient from Mark, we can gain a lot of ground from that. And that's basically what Volhati's tried to do by cutting it off, or attempting to cut it off. Now what you may have also mentioned is, or may have also noticed, is that one of the Hurricanes got shot down really quickly. That was due to the combination of the Gepard and Flak 38. The high veterancy from these Gepards and Flak 38s can make them very lethal. So if enemy forces come overhead, they get shot down very quickly indeed. Either way, Jagdpanzer is getting into position. Pak 40 is still in position. You may note that this Pak 40 is not in the tree line, it is behind the tree line. I'm only going to push that Pak 40 forwards when I decide to engage with any other vehicles, because otherwise it's just sat there as a sitting duck for a Cromwell 7 to fire position the tree line and find the kill. So make sure you're smart about your AT placement, especially if your opponent has 1200 meter range HE units. IG-18 going to be taking on the rallies here. Some off-map does come in from Mark across this town, which has started to clean up a lot of Volhati's infantry, but you can see he's now reinforcing that with even more, and it's just making it more and more difficult for Mark to push him out. Meanwhile, I'm going to be bringing in a new Cromwell, or new Panzer IV here. That's a Ramsch, following up with the Panzer IV that was fixed up, and I've also decided to bring in the 250-10 with the Panzerschreck now. But Atreides, he's going to go for a push here. I've already taken out one tank, but look at these Jagdpanzers. The positions they are in to find side shots is absolutely perfect, and whilst they are distracted by the attack from the Jagdpanzer, I'm bringing up the Pak 40, and I'm going to be taking out the first of two command vehicles, and I'm going to be trying to go for the second with the Pak 40. So you can see that I'm targeting the Sherman 5 here to remove the veterancy, and with the veterancy gone, these units in general will be a lot less effective. So transmission damage, track wheel damage, giving plenty of time for the Jagdpanzer to finish the job. Finally, a Hurricane Mark IV does clean up the Pak 40, but you can see does pay the price of being shot down itself. And I'm still cleaning up many tanks here. This was a huge engagement. German 5 goes down, Cromwell goes down, another Cromwell there, and we killed off this Stuart as well. The Firefly was more or less the only survivor from that engagement. I'd set up those Jagdpanzers in such a position that any kind of push was futile, especially when they were all bunched up in the same position. But I feel like Atreides didn't really have any other choice, because a lot of those units aren't as good as my Jagdpanzers are individually. And that was something that was a big problem for Atreides and the 1st Panzer. So, Vorhati, he's managed to find a foothold in this town. He's managed to get some ersatz in there with the Panzerschreck, and that Panzerschreck has potential to do a lot of damage, but of course Mark still has his off-map at his disposal. But here comes Mickey, once again with an absolute abundance of Panzer 39s. Going to be pushing those aggressively through the town to really cut off this push once and for all. Mark did actually a really good job of like holding on to this side of the map against Vorhati, but with Mickey coming in with this many points invested, it does make things very difficult for Mark to hold the ground. Now manages to show front armor there to the Ju-87, bounces a few shots from it. And that's something that he manages to get away with. Spitfire Mark 9 going to be coming in to try and clean that up as the AA starts to hit it very hard. Not really going to matter too much as the Flak 41 is in position there. I'm going to be bringing in my Focke-Wulf 190s on this left side. Going to be trying to clean up this AA to allow future airstrikes. The good thing about these Focke-Wulfs is they do leave flames behind on the ground with the rockets, just like the ME-109s. So we will see them burn to death, or at least one of them will there, and that should open up the opportunity for future airstrikes. But here comes the suicide rush of the Panzer 39s and the Befehl Panzer 35. They find an AT gun they're up against on the road, they absolutely demolish it at the cost of one of their own, and now there's going to be a Pak 40 in the way, but as long as the Panzer 39s can get into the 1,000 meter range, that shouldn't be a problem. So on they go, pushing forwards. You see the Befehl Panzer 35 just hugging in between, looking like the mother of many sons as they charge on forwards. And all that fire will eventually pin down the Pak 40, especially if it keeps revealing itself by firing at this group of tanks. But surely it doesn't stand much of a chance in the face of all of these units. And as you can see, it does get pinned down. The SDKFZ, an absolute champion, charging forwards there to find the surrender and cut off the reinforcements entirely to that left side. Really clean kill there from my Panzer IV. I actually managed to get the better of a Firefly because I bombed it with a Ju-88S just before I did that engagement. So clean kill. And managed to force back the Cromwell 6 as well. I was hoping that I'd be able to kill that, but wasn't quite able to. Gepard here. I think I unload the Flak 38 to allow that to shoot at the Hurricane as well, to potentially shoot down the Hurricane. But I don't think I quite managed to make that happen. Hurricane Mark IV coming in with the rocket strike to force back Ramsch. My Jagdpanzers now moving forwards a lot more aggressively than they were. Because I've already taken out the majority of Atreides' tanks. Now the Jagdpanzer, as you can see, is going to be having problems with this jumbo from now on, so that's something I'm going to have to keep an eye on. But this force that Mickey used to penetrate this left side was absolutely insane, and now it's going to start to charge towards an M4A376. Spitfire Mark 9 coming in with the bombing strike to try and stop some of Vorhati's infantry here and some of his play, but the Flak Verling and the Flak 41 going to be able to stop that in its tracks. Another tank goes down there. I believe that was my Panzer IV found the kill. This Panzer IV was doing really well throughout this game. Double Focke-Wulf, they're going to be going for this M5 gun, trying to clean that up. F6C comes in to try and shoot down the Focke-Wulf. Do just about manage to save the day there. These F6Cs do lack a little bit of firepower compared to usual Hurricanes, so that's why my Focke-Wulf got away from that. B-26B Marauder comes in to try and bomb my Flak 38, but not going to find the kill. But one thing that does happen is my Panzer IV, I think, revealed itself to the M4A3s on the left side here and managed to get itself killed. Also, Sturmgrenadiers went down in the process. So, slowly but surely, Vulhati has started to clean up this left side. We found ourselves with a 66% territory lead, and, well, what started off with a smoke off-map play has actually turned out really, really well. And of course, with the pressure not being on that hard as we moved into Phase B, I did manage to reinforce myself really strong with the double Jagdpanzer, and that definitely helped chew through the 1st Panzer and their tanks. Now this is still a strong force on the left side. That's a Firefly 5C accompanying an M4A376 and also another M4. But I am still going to be trying to make plays where I can. Ramsch is going to be pushing up, but keeps getting forced back by airstrikes. The Jagdpanzer, I think, ended up getting forced back by the M4A3 here and potentially a rocket strike. But here comes double HS-129. Urman coming in, manages to kill off one of the M4s. And that's something I haven't mentioned yet, is how our Air Force has been pretty much untouched throughout this game. With the investment of like AA early on from Vulhati, especially on my side, it's allowed our Air Force to be pretty safe over here. And also Urman's done such a good job of like holding on to the late game that he now has a lot of stuff at his disposal. Vulhati's going to come in with the Firefly, doesn't manage to, or with the Ju-87, doesn't manage to find the kill onto the Firefly. Takes a cheeky shot at the half-track carrying the 17-pounder, but I'm going to be going for the finishing job there. My Focke-Wulf manages to take out the half-track, leaves the 17-pounder in flames, just waiting for that to burn to death. And this off-map coming in here, well, what is that? That is the massive strike. It's going to be landing straight on top of that infantry. Karlgarat does the job. This poor infantry got annihilated. Fantastically placed there. Ju-87 finally does the job onto the Firefly. These Panzer 39s get the better of the Sherman on the left here. These two Shermans actually going down to the Panzer 39 crew. And what a fantastic job they did. That's for sure. And you can see why this game was quite amusing, especially from my perspective at least. I'm sure for my opponents this was not the most ideal game, but once again Mickey's going to be placing another Karlgarat strike. Can this do the job? We'll have to wait and see. I remember mentioning on the stream at the time that this would have to hit basically here in order to kill all of these Dragoni and the half-tracks. And considering the radius that it has potential to land in, you know, it could land all the way over here. But watch this. Absolutely bang on perfect. Even takes out the command. Poor Dragoni go down, so do both of those half-tracks. One remains alive, but absolutely fantastic strike again. These Karlgarat strikes were gorgeous. And it just made my job so much easier because I obviously don't have to push over into these vehicles if they're already dead. We're going to be sitting in a +3 here. Atreides is going to be surrendering after that one. I think I would too. 4 minutes and 10 seconds left on the clock until we find victory. And Urman, well, he's in control of the skies now, so he's going to be able to shoot down any form of unit that comes in. I'm going to be coming in with a Ju-88S to try and bomb these tanks. I probably shouldn't have because it kind of had the potential to force the tanks out of position of that Karlgarat strike. But in the end, with more reinforcements coming in, that Karlgarat strike was still very nicely placed. F6C going to try and get some work done, but get shot down by all of the AA. On this right side, we take out the M4A376 after it gets hit by the HS129. There's going to be the P47 Thunderbolt coming in. That gets hit really hard, but that off-map hitting the mark once again doesn't actually kill too much, but does manage to force back the M4A376 and does a lot of morale damage to the Sherman 5. Ramsch is in trouble. Internal fire there. M5 gun comes in on the right side, manages to side shot my Panther D. Ramsch is still in trouble. There's also the Jagdpanzer that's trying to reverse out of position, and this really well placed M5 gun actually does quite a lot of damage to my forces that were stuck on the ridge for so damn long. Focke-Wulf comes in here, manages to hit the M5 gun pretty hard, but D520 is not going to let that stick. B26B goes down. Massive air engagement ensues for pretty much the rest of the game as Nomad and von Lurk and all of the players on the opposing team invest in their air force since their ground forces aren't being overrun, and it just caused like these massive air engagements. So can the Me-109 take down another B-26? It can. The one on the left goes down to the D-520. M4A376 gets killed. HS-129's just flying all over the place, picking up free kills. It turned into an absolute turkey shoot on all fronts, both in the sky and on the ground. Absolutely crazy stuff. Another HS-129 going for the Sherman 5. And the strafing runs now coming in from the free fighter aircraft. What can they do? Absolutely nothing. And now I'm going to be trying to push my Sturmgrenadiers into a position where they can cut off the land spawn. Jagdpanther, that's going to be forced back. Marder goes down. Another P47 under fire from two D520s. Can they get the job done? No, they can't. HS-129s, they are just still going, pushing on through. What I'm counting on here with my half-track is just surrendering as many units as possible. And you can see here I'm uploading some Sturmgrenadiers, just going to push forwards aggressively with the half-track. I actually decided to pick up the Sturmgrenadiers again because they were about to get pinned down. And that's actually a really good tip. Like, if you do think that your infantry is going to get pinned down by enemy infantry superiority very quickly, just reload them into the half-track. There's no reason why your infantry should stay behind pinned down when you can just continue to drive forwards in the half-track completely unaffected by the light arms fire. That's exactly what I decided to do with the half-track here, and it seemed to pay off quite a lot. Now this is quite an extreme example where a lot of infantry was pinned down and I just did that, but if it's like a 1v1 between your infantry squad and theirs, say you're up against Panzer Grenadiers with like a voltages unit from the French, just make sure your infantry stays in the half-track. But there you have it, turned into an absolute cluster at the end there, as all three forces came together, all four forces even, came together and pushed across the backside of the map. But after 13 minutes and 27 seconds, absolutely fantastic game, really, really fun to play. And of course, well, ended in our favour. Mickey and Vuhati working together to sort of crush that left side. Went very, very well for them. But yeah, the fantastic Kargarat strikes, the Panzer 39 play with the smoke, and then just like overwhelming superiority towards the end there is actually quite fun to play, and I think quite fun to watch. So there you have it. 2,549 kills to 1,060 losses for myself. 2,800 to 1,235 for Vuhati. We had Urmen with the 3,234 kills to 390 losses. And Mickey, a bit of a worse KD than everyone else due to the suiciding Panzer 39s. But a lot of fun, and thanks to my opponents for playing, of course. This was on stream. I believe this was one of the games where it was open to everyone, so player skill does vary, of course. But just in general, we can have a quick look through the kills. Panzer IV did okay, it took out one of the Staghounds, but this Pak 40 was real king of the early game. It took out the Staghound, it took out the Cromwell 6, it killed off that M1 gun that was threatening my right flank, and killed off the Stuart. The Jagdpanzers, they also did really, really well. Look at the kills from these two. Wolverine, Sherman, Staghound, Cromwell 5, Cromwell 7, M4A376. These are the perfect targets for Jagdpanzers. And this is exactly why I chose to purchase them before I purchased the Panther. Because you don't need to invest 300 points when you can still get the job done with 190 points. And that's something you should always consider when playing yourselves. Like, look at your deck and see if there's something you can get the job done with for a cheaper amount. And that's really where like value for money comes into play, and you start to get these really good KDs. JU-88S did manage to kill a Firefly with a bombing strike, and the Focke-Wulf's coming in there later on, doing a little bit of work. But yeah, the Aufklärer Panther D, that came in and killed the Jumbo. That's the only reason I'd bring in a Panther, and that's why I did, and it got the job done. So yeah, if you bump into Jumbos, Panther D. If you don't need to kill anything with super high armor, then Jagdpanzers should do the job. I would say be careful against Fireflies with the Jagdpanzers, but other than that, you should be okay. In terms of losses, well, we didn't lose too much. This M5 gun at the end did a lot of damage, killing the Panther D and the Panzer IV, and also the 17-pounder caught out this Panzer IV. But that was like basically the main threats throughout the game was the AT guns, and when I'd cleaned those up, it was free. I was free to move forwards. Yes, this Staghound managed to kill off this Panzer IV. That was a big mistake on my part. I should have definitely waited for my off-map to land before I pushed that Panzer IV forwards. But that's just a matter of timing and making sure that you do wait and maintain your patience in those sort of situations. There you go. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that game. I thought it was both interesting tactically and just as a bit of a meme towards the end there, as Mickey rushed in with all of those Panzer 39s. But there you have it. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Goodbye.